Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy, Reverend Laughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Most of the time I don't introduce myself, and I probably should, especially since we're on an author program. I'm an author of 8 books. I research primarily right now as my primary enjoyment in life. I go deep into the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships, and that's what I write about. You treat a cause, you generally can fix a problem. You treat symptoms, and you're always treating symptoms, and the causes may get worse. So anyway, that's what I do. I got 8 books that are out. I have 2 that I'm writing right now, and the other things I do besides that is write and publish books and TV host, a lot of other things. But anyway, my guest today is a good friend of mine. Used to bump into him quite often here in the Houston area, but he's moved to Georgia. And his Russell Little is an award-winning author. He has a couple of books in a mystery series, 3 books, I think, in a children's series, and an attorney for 30 plus years. Just a remarkable gentleman. And I use the term Southern gentleman in that particular tone because he really and truly is. So, Russell, please join me.
Thank you so much, Red. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It's not been that long since the last time you were on here, and I really appreciate you taking the advantage of being able to come back. You have a couple Murder for Me and Murder by Storm, and I think the last time we talked about that, some of that, and I'm going to use intellectual property, that you created these books came from your time as a lawyer. Is that right?
Absolutely. And you know this, you've lived your life, you meet people all the time, but there are certain characters that you meet that you do not forget because they're different than everyone else. And when you run across one of those people, or when I ran across one of those people during my practice, those were people that I would mark, that's somebody I want to write about. And I had a whole handful of these characters, and a crime thriller, a murder thriller was how all these characters demanded to be put together. So that's what I did.
Okay, you're no longer practicing law?
Well, I'm still a licensed attorney in the state of Texas in the federal court system, but mainly what I do now is write and deal with my books.
Okay. It took you a little while to write the first book, is that right?
Yeah, it did. The Murder for Me is actually my first book. I mean, my second book. My first book, after I finished it, I realized was nothing more than a character development. And so I went on to the second book, and that was Murder for Me, the one that was first published.
Okay, so it took you a little while to write it, a little while to edit it, find a publisher, do all the things that authors have to do. And that first book literally took time. Now, your second book didn't take as long, but it still took a little while.
Well, writing it didn't take as long. Publishing took a lot longer because after the first book was a success, I had publishers who wanted to publish both republish the first book and publish the second book, and I had to go through several publishers before we got it done. And then each publisher wants to re-edit everything, right? And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, though I hate it, but it's still a good thing. And so you have to go through more edits. So it took longer post completion of the book than the actual writing of the book takes.
I was noticing last night I was prepping for a show I'm going to do in a couple hours called Talking Heads. I'm talking today about Alzheimer's. And so I pulled up the Alzheimer's book I wrote during COVID. And I'm looking at this thing. Of course, I have Grammarly on my system. That's part of I don't pull it up. It's just there. And every page has something that should be changed. And I can remember going through that book and rereading and reading and going back. And I had people come over to the house. And it just, as you say, everybody can see the same sentence and want to change it a little bit. It doesn't necessarily make it better, but it makes it more, I guess, flows better in the eyes and mind of an experienced reader or an editor. And sometimes, well, where'd that come from? You need to go back. Anyway, so those things are there, and I don't get involved with developmental editing because I don't write novels, but I do get involved with all the other line editing with regard to syntax and diction and grammar and spelling and all that. So there's a lot of things there when you start talking about editing that who you get really and truly determines how much time you put in.
Oh, absolutely. And I have a story about that. It's funny that you say that because I have a story. So I had to rewrite the first book 32 times
Whoa.
before I said, okay, I'm ready to edit this book. And I remember the 10th time that I was rewriting the book, it took 10 times before I realized, oh my gosh, there's this hole in the plot. And I can't believe that I'd rewritten the book 10 times before I realized that. And that's even before you get to an editor. So rewriting and editing it's crucial, especially especially in my second book, because in my second book, Murder by Storm, I had to answer the question of why was Marilyn is the antagonist in the book. How is she able to do the things she does? And why is she the kind of person she is? And so in the second book, I answered that question. And to do that, I had to smoothly and organically write from her perspective. And for me to write from a woman's perspective was a huge challenge. It was the whole intellectual challenge of the book. And uh, so it took a lot of work to do that and to do it in a fluid form.
When I have my book ready to edit, I usually get five, six, seven people come over a couple nights, and I hand out random chapters and a red pen, and I say, uh, go for it. And the question I'm going to ask you is there anything in all of the editing that's been done that's, whoa, I didn't know I was doing that?
Yeah. Yes. I have a story about that too.
Okay.
And so maybe one of the first editors I had in Murder by Storm, we were going through it chapter by chapter as I was writing it, and which is not the best way to do it. But I needed to get this perspective of Marilyn right. And I had to get the voice right. So I was working on it. And I kept doing something wrong. And we were meeting at a cigar bar uh, to go over it. And she walked in and she pulled out chapters 7 and 8 and threw them at me, saying, I told you not to do that. And everyone in the cigar bar was like, what's going on? I was like, it's my editor, okay? And they were like, oh. So yes, the how do I say this? The whole voice of getting a character right, it can be like pulling teeth sometimes to get it right. And So that was one of my big challenges, and it took her throwing those pages at me to get it right.
It's kind of an emotional hit, huh?
It was great, and we didn't talk for 2 weeks. I was so mad about it, but I got it right because yeah, I usually go through periods that I won't talk to my editors.
Well, I had this one where the guy just wrote a little note on the front and says, uh, think about changing if to when. And, uh, if this happens, do this. When this happens, do this.
Yes, that's much more aggressive.
And so I went through there and I had 81 ifs, and I think I changed 79 of them. It was just, that was kind of a real eye opener for me as a writer because and the same thing, you and your, it wasn't that it was you or your, it's just that on a spell checker, you can't find the error because it'll pick up each time and you got to look at all of that. And so you should do this, or this is your, anyway. And so I had a lot of problems with you and your, but I never realized I had a problem with if and when. And then the other one he caught me on a different book was the use of the word that. And he says, 90% of the time you just scratch through that because it's not needed. It's just an extra word. But we, in our vocabulary, as we're writing, we want to put that word, that in there. And so now as I'm doing things, I write it and then I do a find for if, okay, that one slipped by. And I look at that and just, do I really need the word that? And so those are a couple things that I picked up from casual editors because since I write on very technical subjects, I want to make sure that people understand what I'm writing.
And by the way, I would love uh, to read. Do you have a book on diet? I'm very into diet. I would. You're talking about causes and effects. Uh, I'm a big believer in diet. If you have a book on diet, I would love to read it.
I've done a number of shows on various diets here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I've had a series on fat management, on weight loss. I don't
I'm
not
talking about
and
more as a diet as part of your lifestyle, right? As
okay,
how do you maintain health by what you put in your body?
okay. Let me divert just a little bit here, less than probably maybe a minute and a half. Um, the Walls Protocol, WAHLS protocol. Dr. Terry Walls is a internal medicine doctor. Late in life, she came down with MS. It got worse and worse. She had a wheelchair. She started doing some research on the immune system, autoimmune diseases, because MS is one of those autoimmune diseases. Anyway, so she wrote a book. Says, "Here's my protocol," and there's 4 parts to it. One part's diet. And my wife is going through chemo for breast cancer, and we're just getting ready to start radiation. So we extended an extra week to give her a little bit of recovery time. And during that extra time, I put her on the Walls protocol, diet only, because most of the other part we were kind of doing, not all of it. But anyway, the biggest problem I had with her months of chemo was fatigue. I could correct most every other side effect, but she's taking 2 or 3 hour naps a day, almost never waking up. Didn't want to do anything. Put her on the Walls protocol, and within 48 hours, 2 days later, she was eating. Uh, the thing that she wasn't doing was being able to have a conversation, do things. 7 days after we started, she was back up at the church volunteering her time, so she's not sleeping, not.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then the biggest thing was the last day of radiation because her fatigue was supposed to get worse, according to the radiologist. We left Houston, drove to Jacksonville, Florida, 1,000 miles. I drove a U-Haul with my parents' estate stuff in it back. She followed me 48 hours after her last radiation treatment by herself, 500 miles each day, no problems. Diet is such a major portion
Right.
of your mental, emotional, physical outlook on everything. So if I had to recommend something to you, Russell, look at the Walls Protocol by Dr. Terry Walls, WAHLS. But now that you've asked me the question, maybe I should be doing something on that so I have something. So I appreciate that. I'm making a little note here, diet book.
I don't mean to diverge our subject, but
No,
it's such an interesting part. of what you write about, and it's such a big part of my lifestyle that I wanted to bring it up.
Well, the thing that Dr. Terry Walls does is she says, here are 30 some nutrients the body needs every day.
Right.
And if you're deficient in them, you're going to have some problems like B12. You're deficient in B12, mimics Alzheimer's. I mean, just there's a lot of things. You deficient in B12, B6, B9. Uh, it kind of opens the door for depression and anxiety, B1, B3. So a lot of B vitamins control a lot of your mental issues. So there are a lot of things there. When you're deficient, you have problems. Uh, we could go into a number of different stories, but that's the one I would recommend. And for authors, sometimes just having a conversation like this opens up a topic. Well, maybe I should write on that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's a lot of the ways these things get done. So anyway, my follow-on question, if I had one now, I think it back where we were a moment ago. Uh, so you're writing what? Okay, when you were writing, what do you think was for you the easiest part to do on the writing, and what was the hardest part for you to do on the writing?
Okay. This is easy. The most fun, and I know this is in conflict with what I've already said, but the most fun I have while I'm writing is rewriting after, believe it or not, the first one or two edits, because that's when you see your manuscript go from what you wrote to something much more beautiful. And you can see it happening, and it's very exciting. That's why it's so crucial to get a good editor, right? You know that. Because it just changes everything and you can feel it. And it's the kind of thing where you think about it before you go to sleep because you're so excited. You think about it in the shower about what you've written and where you're starting the next day. And that to me is the most beautiful, the most fun thing. The hardest thing for me to write is, believe it or not, children and animals. I find those, and in Murder by Storm, I had children. In both my books, I have animals. I have a dog named Torque. It's a retired police dog that becomes attached to a little girl that, in your outline, and I'm a planner, not a pantser, which means that I outline my book before I start. And then as the characters develop and start taking on a life, they start doing things that aren't in the outline, or they say things that you didn't plan for them to say, or they refuse to do things that, which happens to me when you really get a character really at life. Sometimes they won't do what you plan for them to do. That's not who they are. They'll do something else. And then you have to re-outline everything, right? And then you go on. But that's both the hardest thing is, and the one of the great things is when your characters all of a sudden become alive. In one of the things that I'm writing right now is, I don't know, have you ever read Dunce's Confederacy of the Dunces? It's a
I have,
Pulitzer Prize winning book from the 20s. Have you
I have,
ever read it? Okay. So the author wrote one book, then he died. His mother got it published. It won a Pulitzer Prize. Uh, Before he died, he had sent it to tons of publishers, agents. No one wanted anything to do with it. And when you read it, the last third of the book, he can't end it right. Right? It has a weak ending. So you understand that. But there's a character in this book that is so repulsive to you as a reader, but so memorable that you just, this is just something you, it's like something between your teeth you can't get out, this character. And in my next book, I decided my intellectual purpose for my next book was to write a character that my readers could not get out between their teeth. They were just too annoying, but too unforgettable. And so, you do the outline, you're writing. I'm struggling to find this character. And finally, in chapter 7, boom, I had him. He was not in a gross way, but just in his lack of understanding the circumstances around him or what he should or shouldn't say. Like, here's a perfect example. He spits when he talks. There's nothing grosser than that, right? I mean, that's just the perfect. He spits when he talks, or he has these glasses that don't seem to fit. They're always falling down, especially, or the fact that when he says something uncouth or that freezes the conversation of a group, he gets upset and almost cries. It's just all sorts of weird little things. But the thing about this character, he's on a jury and he was going to be just a minor character, a comical relief, as you would say. But he's the one that sees control of the chapter. And after that, I had to re-outline everything because all of a sudden, this is the character that I want to write about, right? I've got my guy, the guy that the reader can't get out between their teeth at night. They can't stop thinking about this character. So the whole book has changed now.
We're going to take a quick commercial break here. We'll be back in a minute or so. So why don't we relax for a brief moment and we'll be back.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host, and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur, or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming, and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com.
We're back again. Red O'Loughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And award-winning author Russell Little is with me today. And we just got finished talking about that memorable character. And every so often, we're watching TV and there's a character on a show that is weird, offbeat, and you say, why? And it follows exactly. And I tell my wife, that's the guy who really knows how to act because he has pulled that character out of that. In fact, I was just reading something about Sally Kellerman doing Hot Lips Houlihan. Was the fact that they didn't want her to have that level of involvement in the movie way back when. And so it's a kind of a contrast of the director and her establishing what was her boundary for that character. But anyway, I'm going to ask you a question I've asked nobody else. So this is going to be the first time it comes up. Yes, but I know you can handle it because it's a simple yes or no. Have you ever dreamed about your character or your plots?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite stories. I can't believe you asked this. Okay. So when I was writing the first book, actually it was Murder for Me. So it was actually the second book I was writing. Marilyn did not have the name Marilyn. She had a different name. I think it was Catherine. But one night I was sleeping and I was actually reading Freud's Dreams at the time. Have you ever read Freud's Dreams?
I have not.
It's a mind twisting book, and it does all sorts of things while you read it if you read it intently. Anyway, so I was reading that book, but I was asleep one night, and Marilyn came to me, and she grabbed me by the neck and said, "My name is not Kathleen. My name is Marilyn." So the next morning, I wake up and my wife is Melinda. I said, Melinda, I had a dream about Marilyn last night. And her response was, who's Marilyn? And she was like, "What the hell are you dreaming about some other woman for?" I said, "It's Marilyn. It's the bad guy in my book." She came to me and told me her name was Marilyn, and she kind of held her hand out like that. She said, "Uh, you're creeping me out. Don't tell me stuff like that anymore."
Oh my goodness.
It's true. It's true. I can't believe you asked that question.
Well, in the process of what you were talking about, because we all have those characters in our lives, whether they're family or friends or coworkers or whatever. And so, yeah, and then so, every so often I have a dream. I think since I don't write novels, I don't have dreams about novels, but I have dreams a lot about a lot of my military stuff that I've done.
I
And
get bet you do.
so there's a lot of things. I said, well, I just wonder if he uses dreams to solidify something, and apparently it does. It solidified a name.
I don't usually do that. I got to tell you because I don't usually remember my dreams. The weirdness about this is the dream was so distinct. Even today, I can talk about it, which is weird for me because I don't remember dreams. Uh, no, I don't. Uh, I develop my stuff as I move through the day. Uh, it comes to me, and I always use the Hemingway trick of always stop for the day when you know what the next sentence is. That's a rule. So you don't want to stop when you have nothing else to say. You want to stop while you still have something to say because that's where you start the next day. And
Perfect place to bring up the next topic, and that's writer's block.
uh, I so live with that, the threat of it, the existence of it, how you fight it.
You have
You
a
know,
unique you have a
F.
unique way of.
Scott,
I'm sorry.
I said F. Scott Fitzgerald was ridden with that problem.
Okay, but in reading your bio in preparation for the show, there's certain books that you go to in order to kind of fight writer's block. Let's go down that road for a little bit.
The Sun Also Rises. I've
Hemingway.
read it, yes, or his memoir that was not published till the 60s after he was gone by one of his ex-wives. Uh, the uh, those books, like uh, The Feast, when he writes about sitting in the Paris cafes or his struggle with F. Scott Fitzgerald, or in The Sun Also Rises, also in the scenes, first part of the book, when he's writing about his Paris cafe scenes. Uh, I've read those so many times that I've unfortunately, you read any book, even a great Hemingway book, you can read it and you can see if you've read it enough times, all of a sudden you can see, oh, they missed that. That's not the way that didn't work. But when I struggle, I go back to The Sun Also Rises and I reread it and I read it till I start writing again. And I put the book away until the next time I need it. And in fact, I need to read it now.
You're also a co-host on other shows, and you show up on a lot of podcasts because your primary focus right now is to get book sales. So one of the problems I have periodically, let's say Sally Smith is my author that I'm going to talk to today, and I try to find Sally Smith because I don't have her website, or I go to sallysmith.com and it's not the same Sally. There's 15 authors with the same name. So how do you prep as a co-host? And let's walk down that one first, and then I want to come back with a counter question as the author. How do you help podcasters uh, do a really good interview with you?
Okay. The first thing to know about me was that I practiced trial law for 41 years. Uh, and I would say the last 10 or 15 years, it was almost exclusively divorce trial law, which is war. And the way that I would uh, battle in court, because when you're in a trial, you're not a husband, a father, you have no life other than the trial. Nothing exists. That's all you think about. That's all you do 24 hours a day. You don't really eat. You don't really sleep. Uh, and this goes on for weeks. And the way, the first thing, because of the art of war, and I'm really big into game theory. So the first thing that I would want to do, my first preparation is to appraise my opponent and to appraise my opponent's client's motivation and not what they said they wanted, but I would try to discern what they really wanted out of something. Then the second thing I would do is, as soon as I could during the trial, during voir dire, even voir dire is when you're the jury panel of 50 or 60 or 70 people are sitting in front of you, and you have to get down to the 12 people that are going to decide your case. The first thing I'd want to do is get my opponent off their plan, get them where they didn't have a piece of paper about what to do next. uh, I wanted to create chaos. And in chaos, then they lived in the world that, in the field that I wanted to fight on. And so after 41 years of doing that, uh, being a podcast host, meeting an author for the first time with their book, not, you haven't really met them yet the way you described it. You sometimes you don't know, uh, is I just fall back on being a trial attorney, right? I'm going to cross examine you, and I'm going to find out what is really behind you in writing your book. Because the way authors sell books, and I really want to help all our authors sell books, right? Because there's millions of books out there, and the real challenge of writing books in this year, in the world we live in, is finding the readers, the out of the millions of people, finding the readers that would be interested in your book. And the best first way to do that is if those readers are introduced to you and they find you interesting or likable. So I want to reveal the person in the podcast to let the people that are watching know who this person is. This is someone I like. This, I may like their book because I like them. So I want to do that, and I try to help them. And sometimes, and you know this, Red, sometimes you'll find authors that are a little nervous, or they're a little tired, or a little distracted, and sometimes they don't make the best interview. And that's where humor comes in. And you will remember this because you've been on our show, that sometimes we ask serious questions, and sometimes we're laughing and teasing each other to get the commotion and interest going. And sometimes that warms up your interviewee, and things go better. So that's really how I do it. Uh, I just fall back on the trial attorney, but also with my purpose being to let people, the listeners or the people watching, get to know who this author really is.
Okay, you have an Audible book that's coming out here shortly. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that before we got off the show, and we're getting down toward the end. So let's go that direction for a moment.
Okay, Audible Books is a real knot that you have to undo. 60% of the people that buy books now buy them on Audible, and that will only increase, especially a book like mine. Some books are not Audible friendly, like Dune or uh, Dostoevsky or Tolstoy. I would say even F. Scott Fitzgerald is not a good Audible book because the beauty of the words that he writes, and I keep bringing him up because but before he drank himself into a stupor, his as a wordsmith, he was just beautiful. But books like mine, crime thrillers like Murder by Storm is a crime thriller during a hurricane. That's the perfect book for an Audible. So I've been struggling with that. But there's a lot of cost and there's a lot of complexity. And just this week, we were able to snap some of the puzzle pieces in. So all of a sudden, now it looks like it's going to happen. I get requests or questions about when are you going to have an Audible book? I get that every week. It's something, it's like it gnaws at me, right? Because I don't have it and I didn't have an answer. Very excited that I have it, that I at least say now we're in the process.
We're getting toward the end of the show. How do people get in touch with you? How do they get your books? Uh, how do they get you on a podcast?
Uh, well, my publicist Mickey uh, is the way I get on podcasts. You can reach out to him. You can reach out to me at Russell at russelllittle.net, and I can forward you to Mickey, and I can be on your podcast in a second because I'm very flexible. Uh, uh, you can go to my webpage, russelllittleauthor.com, to see all my past interviews, all the author talk stuff, the awards about the fire award that I won, which is very, very exciting. Uh, you can find out where to buy my books. Uh, uh, Also, if you want to know day to day what I'm up to, you can uh, follow me on Russell Stories, which is on Facebook. Like just before we were on this show, I was like, I'm very excited. I'm going to be on with Red in just a few minutes. So I let day to day, I let people know when what I'm doing or what book I'm interested in that day or what subject I might be interested in. Sometimes I talk about science, sometimes I talk about my travels. Like just last year, that in the commercial you had the intersection in Japan, the busiest intersection in the world. I was there last year because we toured Japan, and that is one heck of an intersection. It's as crazy in life as you see it in films and commercials, just like it was on your commercial.
As I say, we're getting ready to wrap things up here. Uh, one last word, anything you want to pass on as a final thought, and then we'll go ahead and conclude today's show.
Well, I'm just really thankful that you asked me to be here. I always like talking to you, Red, and I will be very interested. I'm going to check that out about the diet, and I think you should consider writing a book about it since you're in that subject anyway, and you have so many stories that you can make a readable book about diet.
Now, I'll give it some serious thought. I really will. Never really considered it, but now that you asked, I can see value in it. And that's usually what I want to do is make sure I have some value for the audience that's going to read the book. So, with that being said, Russell, thank you so very much for today. I look forward to our next one. I really and truly do. And maybe one of these days I'll sign up and be on Author Talk and I'll see you on as a guest, as opposed
Book
to.
about diet. You can be on.
Okay. Thank you, Russell. Take care. Red O'Loughlin here. Very shortly, we're going to go into our next program, and it's called The Wise Ones, and then Talking Heads after that. I do 3 shows back to back to back on Thursdays. And the Wise Ones today is another friend of mine, former veteran. He now works with insurance and Medicare and a lot of the retirement kinds of things. And I'm really looking forward to having a good conversation on that. Alzheimer's is a topic that I wrote 40 some different blogs on it while during COVID. I put all those into a book, and that's kind of the basis of the talk I'm going to be giving for Talking Heads in about 2 hours, about an hour, I guess, hour and 20 minutes. And there's just a lot of things that when you just look it up, what causes it, well, they say this, but in reality, there's so many things, just like what causes you to age. Well, I wrote a book on that, but I'm also writing another book on the same topic because there are so many other things that enter into that problem. So I'm collecting these things, even the process last night of putting together slides for my show, I came up with another 6 or 8 things that are very contributory toward the cause of Alzheimer's. So anyway, if you can, Please join me, and I look forward to seeing you all next week on the USA Global TV and Radio Network on the Corner Bookstore. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalized coaching, one-on-one or group sessions designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.